it seems that Trump has stepped back from that threat of additional tariffs over
Yes.
Greenland. But I think the wider point is there. It leaves a bitter taste. You know, the Belgian Prime Minister, also at that Davos meeting in Switzerland, was saying, we don't want to live like slaves, subject to every whim and demand that Donald Trump may make.
Greenland's Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen has responded to talk of a potential deal on Greenland with President Trump.
We are ready to discuss a lot of things, and we are ready to negotiate a better partnership and so on, but sovereignty is a red line. Integrity and our borders and international law is definitely a red line that we don't want anyone to cross, and I don't think that is strange at all. So let's discuss that in a respectful way, and I think our partnership can be much stronger.
The Prime Minister of Greenland, speaking just a very short while ago. Now, afternoon and hello to Mark Urban, the Sunday Times columnist. Hi to you, Mark.
Hello there, John.
It's great to have you here, Mark. I mean, do tell me in your assessment, what do you reckon to be the net effect of this row over Greenland for the Transatlantic Alliance and for relations and for the Western Alliance?
Gosh, look, I think we're talking about processes that are going to take many years to evolve fully. And by that I mean a growing transatlantic divide, a growing feeling that countries in Europe have to do more to look after their own interests, to defend themselves. It's not just about defense, it's everything, including where their data is housed and who has the data centers, all sorts of things in which we're dependent upon the Americans. And undoubtedly, this past week has been a sort of grim milestone, I think, in the realization of many people that we're quite far along that process, and that, they hope that maybe there might be a different president in 3 years' time or something like that, and everything might get back to normal, I think is starting to dim for a lot of people. So the fact that perhaps it doesn't look quite as bad as we thought it did a few days ago on Greenland is a small mercy, but I think overall the direction of travel is still one that's quite unwelcome, I think, for a lot of European leaders.
Yes. I mean, look, you follow these matters up close and personal more than most people by a very long way. We have reported and discussed the wobbles in the market, the political rhetoric, the anger in some quarters, all of that. But there has been, undeniably, a really, really difficult impact on trust in these relationships. So what is the impact of this kind of loss of trust, which could easily get worse, on political and military decision-taking?
Yeah, I mean, look, you're absolutely right. Ursula von der Leyen had that meeting up in Scotland where she shook hands with Trump, as it were, on a deal that was very unequal in terms of levying 15% tariffs on imports to the US from the EU. But she did it in order to try and just get through the situation and not see the European economy being damaged too much. Now, she said in the past couple of days, when you shake hands on something and then suddenly you hear the deal's off because additional tariffs might be on their way, then that does badly shake faith. Now, it seems that Trump has stepped back from that threat of additional tariffs over Greenland. But I think the wider point is there. It leaves a bitter taste. The Belgian Prime Minister, also at that Davos meeting in Switzerland, was saying, we don't want to live like slaves, subject to every whim and demand that Donald Trump may make. So undoubtedly, there are many people breathing a sigh of relief if this thing with Greenland can be resolved. But I think the deeper question is there, and people are saying things to me like, hang on a minute, this guy has got another 3 years to run. And when I say, yes, but won't he just become a lame duck, particularly if the Republicans do badly in the midterms, which are going to happen this November?
Yes.
They say, well, no, we think he could be completely unconstrained, after the midterms in his behavior. He'll be more constrained if the Republicans lose control of the House of Representatives. But you take my point. So a lot of people are concerned that, this won't get better soon, that even if you get another president, if it's J.D. Vance his vice president, well, he really doesn't like Europe much either. And even Doug Newsom, the governor of California, who's a Democrat, who was also in Davos this week and is regarded by many in that party as quite a promising hope for the presidential election in 2028. Even he made various jibes at the expense of the Europeans. So I think that this deeper realization, I think that is the big underlying story of this week.
Yeah, well, that is such an important point. I mean, the idea that what we're seeing now, this kind of barreling uncertainty and instability, could actually pick up momentum as time goes by. Maybe more so after the midterm elections, maybe after the next election. It raises some very, very big decision-taking dilemmas, doesn't it, for policymakers on this side of the Atlantic, to do with self-sufficiency, to do with autonomy. And do you consider that the leaders on this side of the Atlantic are ready for that? Because we're talking about very, very politically difficult decisions lying very close down the track.
Yeah, absolutely. And in this country, it's this big question which keeps going around. I'm sure you've talked about it before quite a few times on the program about spending more on defense and where the money's going to come from. Is it going to come from cutting benefits? The room for more borrowing is barely there. Just today, in fact, we've interviewed Lord George Robertson, the former Secretary General of NATO, but also one of the authors, the principal advisor on the defence review that the government conducted. We interviewed him for the Crisis Room podcast, and he says he is, quote, very disappointed by the government's inability to come up with more money for defence quickly enough. And those kinds of political conversations are just going to intensify. And it's such a problem for Keir Starmer, because clearly there's a substantial wing of the party, who favour the kind of welfare, not warfare view of the world, he's going to have to confront to make a reality of this, or else he's going to have people the likes of Lord George Robertson stating things very plainly that this country isn't moving fast enough to address this new challenge.
Mark Urban, really good to talk to you, Mark. Take care.